Okay, it has come to my attention that many people are wanting to make an animation and then be able to click on the animation itself to activate it. So the animation has to be its own button, and that's what I'm going to show how to do. So I'm going to open up in a HTML5 canvas in Adobe Animate by double clicking. Here's a basic canvas. Make my timeline get revealed here on the side here, and I'm going to make a real simple shape tween, a morph. So I'm going to make a rectangle, and I think I will make it blue perhaps. Here's a blue rectangle, and I'm going to make it morph into an oval by right clicking on the keyframe and saying create shape tween, and then at the end of the tween I'm going to delete it and make an oval. And so now it will morph into that oval. So now the idea here is I want to be able to click on this rectangle and have it start the morph. So it doesn't start the tween until I click on it. But the problem is, in order to make a button that will activate it, I would have to turn this into a symbol. And I can't have a shape tween be a symbol. They have to be outside of symbols. They don't work when they're symbols. So my approach is going to be that I'm going to put a button on top of my tween and then make it so you can't see it, make it invisible, so that when you click on it, it starts the tween and you don't realize that you've actually clicked on a button that was sitting on top of the tween. So that's my approach. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm first going to lock this layer here since my morph is done. I don't want to change anything. And I'm going to make a new layer and put a button there. So I'm going to make another rectangle. I'll make it a new color so we can see the difference. It doesn't matter what color you choose because we're going to make it disappear anyway. It could be red, green, whatever. So I'm going to put the button on top of it. So I've created a shape. I will select that shape, and then I will hit modify, convert to symbol, make it a button, and I'll give it an instance name. Important, you always give everything an instance name. Okay, so there's a button that's on top of my tween, so you can see the tween happening behind it. The idea now is I need to make that button, I need to code it, and then I need to make it invisible. So let's code it first. So I want to put a stop action in the beginning on the very first frame and a stop action at the end at the very last frame, and then code the button to make the play happen. So let's do the stop actions. Window, code snippets, HTML5, timeline, stop at this frame. So now there's a stop at frame 1. Actually, it's frame 0. And then at the very end, stop at this frame. So I've got two little A's here on my timeline that say that I've got two actions. So one at the beginning, one at the end. Great. Now I just have to code the button to get past that very first stop action. So I'm going to go to the first frame again because I want the button coded from the beginning. And I'm going to select the button and say go to frame and play. Click to go to frame and play. So I'll double click it, and it defaults to frame 5, but I want frame 1 because the very first frame is frame 0. So if I go to frame 1, it'll get past that very first stop action. So now let's see if it works. I'm going to hit Command and Enter. And here's my button, and you can see that the morph is happening behind it. So it is working. So now let's just make the button disappear. So let's get rid of these script windows. I'll click on the button again, and you'll see in the properties here, I've got some things I can do. I can hide the object. It doesn't seem to work so well because it seems to hide everything. I've tried this. Instead, we're going to go to the alpha. So this is a color effect. We're going to go to alpha. And alpha is the same thing as transparency. So I click on alpha, and you can see it already. I mean, here's alpha 100. You can see it. 50 is sort of halfway. 0 is completely invisible. We can't go to completely invisible. If you go to completely invisible, it stops working. You have to at least give it 1% of alpha, which is for all practical purposes invisible. We can't see it. But you have to have some number in there. Otherwise, it thinks you don't want the button at all. So go to 1% alpha, and now I'm going to try this out. And so here's my actual morph. And I'm going to click on it now because it's a button on top of it and see that it works. And you can't see the button on top of it. It is basically invisible. You can't really see it. So that's it. That's how you make a animation also be a button.